The 4 Aces. The aces represent the roots of the 4 elements. They are quite above, and distinct from, the other small cards in the same way as Kether is said to be symbolized only by the topmost point of the yod of Tetragrammaton. In these cards is no real manifestation of the element in its material form. They form a link between the small cards and the princesses, who rule the heavens around the North Pole. The meridian is the Great Pyramid, and the elements rule, going eastward, in the order of Tetragrammaton: fire, water, air, earth. Thus, roughly, aces princesses wands cover Asia, cups the Pacific Ocean, swords the Americas, discs Europe and Africa. To make this relationship clear, one may go a little into the symbol of the pentagram, or shield of David. It represents spirit ruling the 4 elements, and is thus a symbol of the triumph of man. The idea of the element of spirit is very difficult to grasp. The letter Shin, which is the letter of fire, has to do double duty by representing spirit as well. Generally speaking, the attributions of spirit are not clear and simple like those of the other elements. It is very remarkable that the tablet of spirit in the Enochian system is the key to all mischief, as, in the Hindu system, Akasha is the egg of darkness. On the other hand, spirit represents Kether. Perhaps it was never in the mind of the exempt adept or adepts who invented the tarot to go so far into this matter. The point to remember is that, both in their appearance and in their meaning, the aces are not the elements themselves, but the seeds of those elements. The 4 twos, these cards refer to Chokma. From the point of view of the ordinary person, Chokma is really number 1 and not number 2, because he is the first manifestation. Kether is completely concealed, so that nobody knows anything about it at all. Hence, only on reaching the deuces does an element appear as the element itself. Chokma is uncontaminated by any influence, therefore the elements here appear in their original harmonious condition. The 2 of Wands is called the Lord of Dominion, and represents the energy of fire, fire in its best and highest form. The 2 of Cups is the Lord of Love, which performs a similar office for water. The 2 of Swords was formerly called the Lord of Peace Restored, but this word restored is incorrect, because there has been no disturbance. The Lord of Peace is therefore a better title. But it needs thinking hard to work this out, since the sword is so intensely active. It may be helpful to study the essay on silence, p. 120, for a parallel, the negative form of the positive idea. See also the essay on chastity, Little Essays Toward Truth, pages 70 to 74, which concludes, Sir Knights, be vigilant, watch by your arms and renew your oath, for that day is of sinister augury and deadly charged with danger which ye fill not to overflowing with gay deeds and bold of masterful, of manful chastity. Witness also Catullus, Domi manis pesc nobis novum continuous futationis. Nor does he misunderstand the gesture of Harpocrates, silence and chastity are isomers. It is all one case of the general proposition that the sum of the infinite energy of the universe is 0. The 2 of Pentacles was of old time called the Lord of Harmonious Change. Now, more simply, change, and here the doctrine must be stated a little more clearly. This suit being of earth, there is a connection with the princesses, and therefore with the final hay of Tetragrammaton. Earth is the throne of spirit. Having got to the bottom, one immediately comes out again at the top. Hence, the card manifests the symbolism of the serpent of the endless band. The 4 threes, these cards are referred to Bina, in each of them is expressed the symbolism of understanding. The idea has become fertilized, the triangle has been formulated. In each case, the idea is of a certain stability which can never be upset, but from which a child can issue. The 3 of Wands is accordingly the Lord of Virtue. The idea of will and dominion has become interpreted in character. The 3 of Cups is called the Lord of Abundance. The idea of love has come to fruition, but this is now sufficiently far down the tree to introduce a very definite differentiation between the suits, which was not previously possible. The idea of division, of mutability, the idea of the airy quality of things, manifests itself in the 3 of Swords, the Lord of Sorrow. Here one is reminded of the darkness of Bina, of the mourning of Isis, but this is not any vulgar sorrow dependent upon any individual disappointment or discontent. It is Weltschmerz, the universal sorrow, it is the quality of melancholy. The Three of Pentacles, in a similar manner, exhibits the result of the idea of earth, of the crystallization of forces, and so the Three of Pentacles is called the Lord of Work. Something has definitely been done. The Four Fours, these cards are attributed to Xt. The connection between the number 4 and the number 3 is extremely complex. The important characteristic is that 4 is below the abyss, therefore, in practice, it means solidification, materialization. Things have become manifest. The essential point is that it expresses the rule of law. In the Wand suit, the card is called completion. The manifestation promised by Bina has now taken place. This number must be very solid, because it is the actual dominating influence on all the following cards. Xt, Jupiter Ammon, the Father, the first below the abyss, is the highest idea which can be understood in an intellectual way, and that is why the Sephira is attributed to Jupiter, who is the demiurge. The Four of Cups is called luxury. The masculine nature of fire permits the Four of Wands to appear as a very positive and clear-cut conception. The weakness in the element of water threatens its purity, it is not quite strong enough to control itself properly, so the Lord of Pleasure is a little unstable. Purity has somehow been lost in the process of satisfaction. The Four of Swords is called truce. This seems rather on the lines of the strong man armed, keeping his house in peace. The masculine nature of air makes it dominant. The card is almost a picture of the formation of the military clan system of society. As to the discs, the heaviness of the symbol rather outweighs any considerations of its weakness. The card is called power. It is the power which dominates and stabilizes everything, but manages its affairs more by negotiation, by pacific methods, than by any assertion of itself. It is law, the Constitution, with no aggressive element. The Four Fives, in the Naples arrangement, the introduction of the number 5 shows the idea of motion coming to the aid of that of matter. This is quite a revolutionary conception, the result is a complete upset of the statically stabilized system. Now appear storm and stress. This must not be regarded as something evil. The natural feeling about it is really a little more than the reluctance of people to get up from lunch and go back to the job. In the Buddhist doctrine of sorrow, this idea is implicit, that inertia and insensitiveness must characterize peace. The climate of India is perhaps partly responsible for this notion. The adepts of the White School, of which the Tarot is the sacred book, cannot agree to such a simplification of existence. Every phenomenon is a sacrament. For all that, a disturbance is a disturbance, the Five of Wands is called strife. On the other hand, the Five of Cups is called disappointment, as is only natural, because fire delights in superabundant energy, whereas the water of pleasure is naturally placid, and any disturbance of ease can only be regarded as misfortune. The Five of Swords is similarly troublesome, the card is called defeat. There has been insufficient power to maintain the armed peace of the four. The quarrel has actually broken out. This must mean defeat, for the original idea of the sword was a manifestation of the result of the love between the wand and the cup. It is because the birth had to express itself in the duality of the sword and the disc that the nature of each appears so imperfect. The Five of Discs is an equally evil case. The soft quiet of the four has been completely overthrown. The card is called worry. See Skeet, Etymological Dictionary. The idea is of strangling, as dogs worry sheep. Note the identity with Sphinx. The economic system has broken down, there is no more balance between the social orders. Discs being as they are, stolid and obstinate, as compared with the other weapons, for their evolution serves T9 stabilize them, there is no action, at least not in its own ambit, that can affect the issue. The Four Sixes. These cards are attributed to Tifereth. This Sephira is in some respects the most important of all. It is the center of the whole system, it is the only Sephira below the abyss which communicates directly with Kether. It is fed directly from Chokmah and Bina, also from Chst and Jebra. It is thus admirably fitted to dominate the lower Sephiroth. It is balanced both vertically and horizontally. In the planetary system it represents the Sun, in the system of Tetragrammaton it represents the Sun. The entire geometrical complex of the Ruach may be regarded as an expansion from Tifereth. It represents consciousness in its most harmonized and balanced form, definitely in form, not only in idea, as in the case of the number 2. In other words, the Sun is an interpretation of the Father in terms of the mind. The 4 sixes are thus representative of their respective elements at their practical best. The 6 of Wands is called victory. The outburst of energy in the 5 of Wands, which was so sudden and violent that it even gave the idea of strife, has now completely won success. The rule, or lordship, in the suit of Wands is not quite as stable as it might have been if there had been less energy displayed. So, from this point, as soon as the current leaves the middle pillar, the inherent weakness in the element of fire, which is this, that, for all its purity, it is not completely balanced, leads to very undesirable developments. The 6 of Cups is called pleasure. This pleasure is a kind of pleasure which is completely harmonized. The zodiacal sign governing the card being Scorpio, pleasure is here rooted in its most convenient soil. This is preeminently a fertile card, it is one of the best in the pack. The 6 of Swords is called science. Its ruler is Mercury, so that the element of success turns away from the idea of division and quarrel. It is intelligence which has won to the goal. The 6 of Discs is called success, the ruler is the moon. This is a card of settling down, it is very heavy, wholly lacking in imagination, yet somewhat dreamy. Change is soon coming upon it, the weight of earth will ultimately drag the current down to a mere eventuation of material things. Yet the moon, being in Taurus, the sign of her exaltation, the best of the lunar qualities are inherent. Moreover, being a 6, the solar energy has fertilized her, creating a balanced system for the time being. The card is worthy of the name success. Remember only that all success is temporary, how brief a halt upon the path of labor. The 4 sevens, these cards are attributed to Netsuch. The position is doubly unbalanced, off the middle pillar, and very low down on the tree. It is taking a very great risk to descend so far into illusion, and, above all, to do it by frantic struggle. Netsuch pertains to Venus, Netsuch pertains to Earth, and the greatest catastrophe that can befall Venus is to lose her heavenly origin. The 4 sevens are not capable of bringing any comfort, each one represents the degeneration of the element. Its utmost weakness is exposed in every case. The 7 of Wands is called valor. Energy feels itself at its last gasp, it struggles desperately, and may be overcome. This card brings out the defect inherent in the idea of Mars. Patriotism, so to speak, is not enough. The 7 of Cups is called debauch. This is one of the worst ideas that one can have, its mode is poison, its goal madness. It represents the delusion of delirium tremens and drug addiction, it represents the sinking into the mire of false pleasure. There is something almost suicidal in this card. It is particularly bad because there is nothing whatever to balance it, no strong planet to hold it up. Venus goes after Venus, and Earth is churned into the Scorpion morass. The 7 of Swords is called futility. This is a yet weaker card than the 7 of Wands. It has a passive sign instead of an active one, a passive planet instead of an active one. It is like a rheumatic boxer trying to come back after being out of the ring for years. Its ruler is the moon. The little energy that it possesses is no more than dream work, it is quite incapable of the sustained labor which alone, bar miracles, can bring any endeavor to fruition. The comparison with the 7 of Wands is most instructive. The 7 of Discs is called failure. This suit gives the extreme of passivity, there is no positive virtue in it below the abyss. This card is ruled by Saturn. Compare it with the 3 other 7s, there is no effort here, not even dream, the stake has been thrown down, and it is lost. That is all. Labor itself is abandoned, Everything is sunk in sloth. The 4 eights are attributed to Hod. Being in the same plane as the 7s on the tree of life, but on the other side, the same inherent defects as are found in the 7s will apply. Yet one may perhaps urge this alleviation, that the 8s come as, in a sense, a remedy for the error of the 7s. The mischief has been done, and there is now a reaction against it. One may, therefore, expect to find that, while there is no possibility of perfection in the cards of this number, they are free from such essential and original errors as in the lower case. The 8 of Wands is called swiftness, as one might expect from its attribution to Mercury and Sagittarius. This is an etherealization of the idea of fire. All gross elements have disappeared. Let there be a short digression with regard to the signs of the zodiac. In the case of each element, the cardinal sign represents the swift, impulsive onrush of the idea. In the cherubic sign, the element has come to its full balance of power, and in the other signs the force is fading away. Thus, Aries represents the rush of fire, lightning, Leo, its power, the sun, and Sagittarius, the rainbow, its sublimation. Similar considerations apply to the other elements. See the attributions section, the triplicities of the zodiac. In the 8 of Wands, fire is no longer conjoined with the ideas of combustion and destruction. It represents energy in its most exalted and tenuous sense. This suggests such forms thereof as the electric current, one might almost say pure light in the material sense of that word. The 8 of Cups is called indolence. This card is the very apex of unpleasantness. It is ruled by the planets Saturn, time, sorrow, have descended upon pleasure, and there is no strength in the element of water which can react against it. This card is not exactly the morning after the night before, but it is very nearly that. The difference is that the night before has not happened. This card represents a party for which all preparations have been made, but the host has forgotten to invite the guests, or the caterers have not delivered the good cheer. There is this difference, though, that it is in some way or other the host's own fault. The party that he planned was just a little bit above his capacity, perhaps he lost heart at the last moment. The 8 of Swords is called interference. At first sight, it would seem easy to confuse it with the 8 of Cups, but the idea is, in reality, quite different. The card is attributed to Jupiter and Gemini. Accordingly, there is no weighing down of the will by internal or external stress. It is simply the error of being good-natured when good nature is disastrous. Gemini is an airy sign, an intellectual sign. Jupiter is geniality and optimism. This will not do in the world of swords. If one must hit at all, a knockout blow is best. But there is another element in this card, that of unexpected. The 8s, being at heart mercurial, are always that, interference, sheer unforeseen bad luck. Trivial incidents have often altered the destiny of empires, brought to naught the best laid plans of mice and men. The 8 of Discs is called prudence. This card is a great deal better than the last two, because, in purely material matters, especially those relating to actual money, there is a sort of strength in doing nothing at all. The problem of every financier is, first of all, to gain time. If his resources are sufficient, he always beats the market. This is the card of putting something away for a rainy day. Its attribution is Sol in Virgo. It is the card of the husbandman. He can do little more than sow the seed, sit back, and wait for the harvest. There is nothing noble about this aspect of the card. Like all the 8s, it represents an element of calculation, and gambling is securely profitable if one has adjusted the cagnot properly. There is yet another point which complicates this card. The 8 of Discs represents the geomantic figure Populus, which is an easy-going figure, and at the same time stable. One thinks of Queen Victoria's time, of a man who is something in the city rolling up to town with Albert the Good advertised by his watch chain and his frock coat. On the surface he is very affable, but he is nobody's fool. The 4 9s. These cards are attributed to Yesod. After the double excursion into misfortune, the current returns to the middle pillar. This Sephira is the seat of the great crystallization of energy. but it takes place very far down the tree, at the apex of the third descending triangle, and a flat triangle at that. There is little help from low, unbalanced spheres like Netzach and Hod. What saves Yesod is the direct ray from Tiferet. This Sephira is in the direct line of succession. Each of these cards gives the full impact of the elemental force, but in its most material sense, that is, of the idea of the force, for Yesod is still in Yetzirah, the formative world. Zoroaster says, the number 9 is sacred, and attains the summit of perfection. Egypt and Rome, also, had 9 major deities. The 9 of Wands is called strength. It is ruled by the moon and Yesod. In the vision and the voice, the 11th eye gives a classical account of the resolution of this antinomy of change and stability. The student should also consult the works of any of the better mathematical physicists. Of all important doctrines concerning equilibrium, this is the easiest to understand, that change is stability, that stability is guaranteed by change, that if anything should stop changing for the fraction of a split second, it would go to pieces. It is the intense energy of the primal elements of nature, call them electrons, atoms, anything you will, it makes no difference, change guarantees the order of nature. This is why, in learning to ride a bicycle, one falls in an extremely awkward and ridiculous manner. Balance is made difficult by not going fast enough. So also, one cannot draw a straight line if one's hand shakes. This card is a sort of elementary parable to illustrate the meaning of this aphorism, change is stability. Here the moon, the weakest of the planets, is in Sagittarius, the most elusive of the signs, yet it dares call itself strength. Defense, to be effective, must be mobile. The 9 of Cups is called happiness. This is a peculiarly good card, because happiness, as the word implies, is so much a matter of luck. The card is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is fortune. In all these watery cards, there is a certain element of illusion. They begin by love, and love is the greatest and most deadly of the illusions. The sign of Pisces is the refinement, the fading away of this instinct, which, begun with dreadful hunger and carried on with passion, has now become a dream within a dream. The card is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter in Pisces is indeed good fortune, but only in the sense of complete satiety. The fullest satisfaction is merely the matrix of a further putrefaction. There is no such thing as absolute rest. A cottage in the country with the roses all around it? No, there is nothing permanent in this. There is no rest from the universe. Change guarantees stability. Stability guarantees change. The 9 of Swords is called cruelty. Here the original disruption inherent in swords is raised to its highest power. The card is ruled by Mars and Gemini, it is agony of mind. The Ruach consumes itself in this card, thought has gone through every possible stage, and the conclusion is despair. This card has been very adequately drawn by Thomson in The City of Dreadful Night. It is always a cathedral of the damned. There is the acrimonious taint of analysis. Activity is inherent in the mind, yet there is always the instinctive consciousness that nothing can lead anywhere. The 9 of Discs is called gain. The suit of discs is much too dull to care, it reckons up its winnings, it does not worry its head about whether anything is won when all is won. This card is ruled by Venus. It purrs with satisfaction at having harvested what it sowed, it rubs its hands and sits at ease. As will be understood from the consideration of the tens, there is no reaction against satisfaction as there is in the other 3 suits. One becomes more and more stolid, and feels that everything is for the best in the best of all possible worlds. The 4 tens. These cards are attributed to Malkuth. Here is the end of all energy, it is away from the formative world altogether, where things are elastic. There is now no planetary attribution to consider. So far as the Sephira is concerned, it is right down in the world of Visaya. By the mere fact of having devised 4 elements, the current has derogated from the original perfection. The tens are a warning, see whither it leads to take the first strong step. The 10 of Wands is called oppression. This is what happens when one uses force, and nothing else but force all the time. Here looms the dull and heavy planet Saturn weighing down the fiery, ethereal side of Sagittarius. It brings out all the worst in Sagittarius. See the archer, not shooting forth benign rays, but dealing the sharp rain of death. The wand has conquered, it has done its work, it has done its work too well, it did not know when to stop. Government has become tyranny. One thinks of the Hydra when one reflects that King Charles was beheaded in Whitehall. The Ten of Cups is called satiety. Its attribution is Mars in Pisces. The watery sign has sunk into a stagnant dream, but in it broods and breeds the violent quality of Mars, to putrefy it. As it is written, until a dart strike through his liver. The pursuit of pleasure has been crowned with perfect success, and constantly it is discovered that, having got everything that one wanted, one did not want it after all, now one must pay. The Ten of Swords is called ruin. It teaches the lesson which statesmen should have learned, and have not, that if one goes on fighting long enough, all ends in destruction. Yet this card is not entirely without hope. The solar influence rules, ruin can never be complete, because disaster is a sthenic disease. As soon as things are bad enough, one begins to build up again. When all the governments have smashed each other, there still remains the peasant. At the end of Candide's misadventures, he could still cultivate his garden. The Ten of Discs is called wealth. Here again is written this constantly recurring doctrine, that as soon as one gets to the bottom one finds oneself at the top, and wealth is given to Mercury in Virgo. When wealth accumulates beyond a certain point, it must either become completely inert and cease to be wealth, or call in the aid of intelligence to use it rightly. This must necessarily happen in spheres which have nothing whatever to do with material possessions, as such. In this way, Carnegie establishes a library, Rockefeller endows research, simply because there is nothing else to do. But all this doctrine lies behind the card, it is the inner meaning of the card. There is another view to consider, that this is the last of all the cards, and therefore represents the sum total of all the work that has been done from the beginning. Therefore, in it is drawn the very figure of the tree of life itself. This card, to the other 35 small cards, is what the 21st trump, the universe, is to the rest of the trumps.